Imagine it's 1846. You walk into a hospital and see a doctor. His coat is stiff, caked in dried blood and pus. It's not a sight that makes you run for the hills. No, it's a badge of honor. It means he's an experienced, hard-working physician, a man you can trust. But this badge of honor was also a death sentence. Doctors were unwittingly acting as angels of death, especially in maternity wards. And the man who tried to expose this horrifying truth, they didn't listen. They destroyed him. This is the story of Ignaz Semmelweis, a man who fought a war against invisible killers and paid the ultimate price. Our story begins in the Vienna General Hospital, a place that held two very different fates for pregnant women. The hospital had two maternity clinics. The first was run by highly respected doctors and their bright-eyed medical students. The second was managed by midwives. You'd think the doctor's clinic would be the safer choice, right? The place with all the scientific knowledge? You would be tragically wrong. In the doctor's clinic, a terrifying plague known as childbed fever was rampant. At its worst, 1 out of every 3 women who gave birth there would die a horrible, agonizing death. The mortality rate could soar as high as 30%. The news of this horror spread through Vienna like wildfire. Women would get on their hands and knees, weeping and begging, pleading to be admitted to the midwives' clinic. They knew the truth. Going to the doctor's clinic wasn't just a risk. It was a potential death sentence. They would rather give birth on the street than enter those doors. The midwives' clinic, by contrast, was a sanctuary. Its death rate was dramatically lower, often less than 2%. So, what was the difference? What was happening in the doctor's clinic that turned the miracle of birth into a gruesome lottery of death? This question haunted a young Hungarian doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis. He was a junior physician at the Vienna hospital, and he was obsessed, consumed by the need to understand why so many mothers were dying under his colleagues' care. He couldn't stand by and watch this tragedy unfold day after day. Semmelweis was a man of science, a man of observation. He began to investigate every possible factor. He meticulously documented everything. Could it be the air? He checked the ventilation. Was it the food? He compared the diets in both clinics. He even considered the psychological impact of a priest ringing a bell while walking through the ward to administer last rites to the dying. He had the priest change his route, but the deaths continued. Nothing he investigated seemed to explain the massive disparity. The mystery was maddening. The solution seemed impossible to find. Then, in 1847, a tragic event provided a breakthrough. A close friend and colleague of Semmelweis, a professor named Jakob Kolechka, died suddenly. During an autopsy on a woman who had died from childbed fever, a student had accidentally nicked Kolechka's finger with a scalpel. The infection that followed was swift and brutal. As Semmelweis reviewed the autopsy report of his deceased friend, a chill ran down his spine. The internal damage, the symptoms, the entire progression of the disease, it was identical to what he had seen in countless mothers who had died from childbed fever. In that moment, the horrifying puzzle pieces clicked into place. The medical students and doctors would often start their day in the autopsy room, dissecting cadavers. Their hands would be covered in what Semmelweis called cadaverous particles, microscopic bits of decaying tissue from the corpses. Then, with those same unwashed hands, they would go straight to the maternity ward to perform internal examinations on pregnant women. They were transferring death directly from the morgue into the wombs of living mothers. The midwives, on the other hand, weren't involved in autopsies. Their hands were clean. It was a simple yet utterly revolting realization. The very people sworn to heal were the ones spreading the disease. Semmelweis knew he had to act fast. He couldn't just tell them to wash with soap and water. He needed something strong enough to destroy the deadly particles. He implemented a strict new policy. Everyone entering the maternity ward had to wash their hands thoroughly in a solution of chlorinated lime. It was a harsh, foul-smelling substance, but Semmelweis insisted it was necessary to remove the stench of the morgue from their hands, and with it, the agent of death. The results were nothing short of a miracle. Almost immediately, the death rate in the doctor's clinic plummeted. It dropped from a staggering 18% down to around 1%, sometimes even reaching zero. It was the same level as the midwives' clinic. Hundreds of lives were saved. Women stopped begging to avoid the doctor's ward. Semmelweis had found the cure. He had defeated childbed fever. He should have been hailed as a hero, a savior, but that's not what happened. Instead of celebration, Semmelweis was met with outrage and hostility from the medical establishment. His discovery was not seen as a breakthrough, but as an insult. The senior doctors in Vienna were pillars of society. They were gentlemen, and the implication of Semmelweis' theory was unbearable to them. "Are you saying our hands are dirty?" They scoffed. "A gentleman's hands are never dirty." They couldn't accept the idea that the educated elite could be responsible for the deaths of their own patients. It was an attack on their character, their status, their very identity. They dismissed his work, calling it unscientific. They mocked him relentlessly. It didn't matter that the death rates proved he was right. Their pride was more important than the evidence. His contract at the Vienna hospital was not renewed. He was effectively fired and forced to leave. Semmelweis returned to his native Hungary, where he took a position at a small hospital in Pest. He implemented his hand-washing policy there, and just like in Vienna, the death rate for childbed fever was virtually eliminated. He published his findings, hoping the world would finally listen. But the European medical community continued to reject his ideas. He wrote angry, desperate letters to prominent doctors across the continent, calling them irresponsible murderers. But his passionate pleas fell on deaf ears. He was seen as a radical, a madman. The constant rejection, the mockery, the knowledge that countless women were still dying needlessly because of professional arrogance, it took its toll. Semmelweis, the man who had saved so many, couldn't save himself. His mental health deteriorated. He suffered a severe nervous breakdown. In 1865, his colleagues, under the pretense of having him visit a new medical institute, tricked him into entering an insane asylum. When he realized the deception and tried to leave, he was brutally beaten by the guards. He was thrown into a dark cell, restrained in a straitjacket. During the struggle, he had sustained a wound on his hand. The wound became infected. Ignaz Semmelweis died just 2 weeks later, alone and abandoned, at the age of 47. The cause of death was sepsis, a widespread infection. The very same disease he had dedicated his life to eradicating. It was the most tragic and cruel irony. It wasn't until years after his death, with the work of Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister on germ theory, that the medical world finally understood the profound truth of what Semmelweis had discovered. His ideas were vindicated, and hand-washing became a fundamental pillar of modern medicine. Today, the legacy of Ignaz Semmelweis is everywhere. It's in every hospital sink, every bottle of hand sanitizer, every surgeon scrubbing in before an operation. He is now celebrated as the savior of mothers. But for the man himself, recognition came far too late. His story is a powerful, heartbreaking reminder that progress is often met with resistance, and that even the most brilliant truths can be rejected by a world not yet ready to hear them. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as moving as I did, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about the hidden heroes of history. See you next time.